Subcommittee.
Gentleman is recognized for 10 minutes.
Let me tell you what is in this bill and what you're voting against. There's $1.7 billion of this bill request for military health care. If you vote against this bill, you're denying our troops $1.7 billion. $450 million for post-traumatic stress, $450 million for brain injury care. It's insufficient, but that's the money we put in the bill. $62 million for amputee care at Walter Reed. $20 million to fix up Walter Reed. That's what's in this bill for health care. If you vote against this bill, the military families will be denied $17 million to help prevent child spouse abuse. The bill increases accountability over contractors. When I was in Iraq a month and a half ago, the contractors were falling over each other. GAO and the Inspector General of Iraq said to us, help us get this under control. I asked, or one of the members in the subcommittee asked the GAO what we could do to help. And I asked the Undersecretary of Defense, how many contractors do you have in Iraq? And he couldn't tell me. They said, we'll tell you within a week. We still haven't heard, and that's been over a month ago. We've had 11 hearings. We're going to have 35 more hearings before this year's over. We're going to hold the Defense Department accountable for the money that they're spending and the strategy that they're using. This bill bans permanent bases in Iraq. This bill bans torture in Iraq. We've sent troops to Iraq that were not trained in their specific MOSs. And Abu Ghraib was exactly why this happened. We had people that were untrained, National Guard members who were untrained that went into that prison, didn't know how to handle it, and it caused a national disaster, a public relations disaster. And the way we are doing the military is doing the job. There's nobody that regards the military higher than I do. Nobody is more inspired by the troops that I talk to and I see. But let me tell you something. With the type of tactics they have to use, by knocking down doors, by using overwhelming force, makes enemies. That's the problem that we have. And we're not winning the hearts and minds of the people when we do that. Now let me talk about the readiness of our troops. We were every unit in the United States except 2 National Guard units, we went in this war, were the highest state of readiness. Now there's only 2 units in the United States are at the highest state of readiness. This provides money to take care of that. If you vote against that, you're voting against money to take care of readiness for our strategic reserve. Let me tell you what General Craddock says. General Craddock is a European commander, the NATO commander, American commander. We have very little capacity. Listen to what I'm saying. This is what General Craddock says. We have very little capacity left after we source the global force pool, if you will, for these ongoing European command missions. Our ability to do what now is limited because we don't have the forces available since the inner rotation on other missions. He's saying what I've been saying for a year and a half. This is a failed policy wrapped in illusion. We don't have the troops. We don't have a strategic reserve to be able to react to a future threat, to a national threat to this great country. The troops can only do so much. This bill includes $1.4 billion for the new armored vehicles. If you vote against this, you're voting against the new armored vehicles, which we need so badly. We put an extra $313 million above what the Defense Department requested for those vehicles. That's the V-shaped vehicles which resist the IEDs. If you vote against this bill, you'll be denying the troops better protection and better equipment. This bill also includes millions to reset the forces. What I've been saying is the equipment. Somebody said the other day, oh, well, they train on old equipment. Well, why does that mean anything? Well, those of you who've been in the military, you know what it means. It means when you go into combat, you don't have the type of equipment you need. You're risking the lives of these people by training on inadequate equipment. We have 2 units that won't go to the desert because they have to rush them over to Iraq. This is an administration. It's not the military's fault. The administration has forced the military to break their own guidelines in order to send troops over to supply this surge and to sustain this deployment. Finally, we're saying in this bill, you can't send troops back into battle unless they have the appropriate training. They're fully trained, mission capable. Is there anybody going to vote against that? If you vote against this bill, you vote against that. If you vote against this bill, you vote against sending troops back in less than a year at home. That's unacceptable. You can sit here and say we're fighting this war. Oh, yes, you can sit here in Washington and say you're fighting this war. But let me tell you something. Those young people, sometimes been back 3 and 4 times. Their families are suffering. These are not 140,000 people. These are each individuals with families and relatives that are bearing the brunt of this fighting and are sent back. This bill forces the administration to live up to the guidelines they have set for their military and not to extend them. A psychologist told us in a hearing that if you spend 3 months in combat, that there's a good chance you'll start to develop PTSD. 3 months in this intensive combat in Baghdad. Now, you can sit here and talk about us fighting this war on terrorism. We put an extra $1 billion for Afghanistan in this bill so we could fight terrorism. Started in Afghanistan. That's where it started. And let me tell you something. We set benchmarks. We set benchmarks because it hasn't worked. Every time something happens over there, what we say is, oh, we'll send American troops. We'll send American troops back before they have their time at home. We'll send American troops. We'll extend American troops. The Iraqis have to start to bear this responsibility for themselves, and that's why we're putting in a bill. The American people in the last election sent a message. They said, we want the Iraqis to solve their own problems in Iraq. The Americans have bore the brunt. We're spending $8 billion, $8.4 billion a month, $2 billion to get people and equipment and supplies over to Iraq. $2 billion a month, 8,000 miles away. I'll tell you what hurts the troops. I'll tell you what hurts them. It hurts them when they extend it beyond 13 months. Or the Marines are beyond 7 months. What hurts the troops if you send the troop, or if you keep the troops, send them back before they have a year at home. That's what hurts the morale of troops. I'm the person that found the 44,000 shortage of body armor in the initial invasion of Iraq. We had troops in danger because they didn't have the equipment they needed. We cannot send troops back into combat without equipment and fully being trained. Let me just say this in the end. My grandfather's civil hat is in my office. Civil War hat is in my office. He lost his arm in the Civil War, fighting for the North, some of you Southerners here. And my great-grandmother lived to be 96. I was 6 years old when she died. She said, you're on this earth to make a difference. We're going to make a difference with this bill. We're going to bring those troops home. We're going to start changing the direction of this great country.